brain is going to explode with questions and concerns about parenting, education, and what is right for you and your child.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Mindful Mummies podcast. I'm Bree.
And I'm Stina.
And we're sisters-in-law with backgrounds in education, and combined we have 5 very busy boys.
Our hope is to create a community for parents where we can learn, laugh, and support each other.
We'll be joined by special guests who inspire us and bring different perspectives to the table.
Thanks for joining us. Today on the podcast, we have Justine Sones. Justine is a writer and stress management coach who loves drinking coffee, helping burnt-out humans set boundaries, and talking about things that hurt. During her career as a massage therapist, Justine's practice was dedicated to exploring the roles that stress, pain, and relaxation play in healing the physical body. She came to realize that the support her clients needed required more than a massage, and made it her mission to help them. Justine now spends her time writing about feelings and coaching other overfunctioning humans develop healthy boundaries and practice sustainable self-care as they navigate the messy intersections of partnering, parenting, preneuring, and pandemicking. We adored chatting with Justine and learned so many amazing strategies from her. We hope you love this conversation as much as we did. Enjoy! Justine, welcome to the Mindful Mummies podcast. We are very excited about our conversation with you today. I think it is a perfect time to be talking with you, and we are really looking forward to learning from some of your experience and expertise in the areas of setting boundaries and taking care of yourself during this incredibly challenging time in the world. So welcome.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can start off by telling us just like a little bit about what it is you do and how you came to arrive in this role and this career that you have now.
Yeah, so I am a writer and self-care coach. So part of my business is a lot to do with marketing and ghostwriting for some other businesses. But the other component about it, the self-care coaching, is something that was kind of a bridge that I built from my career in massage therapy. So I used to help people manage their stress with physical symptoms and interventions. And then over time, I started to realize that those practices could also be applied to help people manage their emotional stress and their mental stress and everything else that was going on in life. So these days, instead of working in a clinic with a massage table, I work with a Zoom room with other people on the other side of the screen, and I help them to create the space to talk about their feelings, process what's going on in their life, and take more sustainable, active steps to manage their stress.
Awesome. It's interesting, as I was preparing for this podcast, I was thinking about how whenever I have gone to massage therapy, especially when I was pregnant, but gone to massage therapy, I've always felt like my massage therapist has been sort of like a counselor / therapist.
Yes.
Not only for my body, but for my mind and for my soul, right? Because it's sort of like they're a caring profession, right? You're caring for someone's body and
it's something. We were actually warned about that in massage therapy school to the degree that we aren't actually trained to hold space for people's emotional and psychological well-being. Mm-hmm. But we are, again, because our intervention lowers their stress response. When people are relaxed, they're more likely to want to share and want to open up and feel safe enough to disclose. Mm-hmm. So we were basically taught to just hold a neutral container. It's like people will relax and tell you things, and all you can say is, "Oh, that's hard." But it turns out that's what they need.
Yeah, they just need validation. Yeah, somebody to listen. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and someone who is legally not allowed to tell anyone what they've said.
Right?
Exactly.
That's what everybody needs. It's like a safe place to just feel heard. Yeah.
Yes, it's that trust. It facilitates trust. Yeah.
So I can see how the massage therapy path has led you to where you are now, because I feel like they definitely make sense the way it goes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that you wear many hats in your career. One of the things that we thought was super cool was something that you do called the Friday Feels. Maybe you want to start. Do you want to tell us a little bit what that is? And I know that's something that is also accessible to a wide audience.
Yeah. So the Friday Feels is a bi-weekly email newsletter that I send out that does a deep dive into all things feelings, self-care, and setting boundaries. I like to say that if Taylor Swift wrote emails instead of songs, they would be the Friday Feels. And they really arose as a result of when I was, navigating life in survival mode, and I needed to process my feelings. And I found that when I shared them with other people, it ended up being very supportive for them as well. So while I can't, work with hundreds of people at a time, I can send out an email, like a letter that I write at the end of a very long week that brings people into a space that helps them to face what they're dealing with and process it in a healthy way.
And you do that every single Friday?
I used to do it every single Friday.
Okay.
And now it's every other Friday, just because as the stress of the pandemic started to stack, something had to give. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it had to be the weekly email. So I'm optimistic that I can get it back to a weekly cadence at some point. Mm-hmm. But right now it's every other week.
We feel that big time. We've been trying to figure out, how we've got all these different things going on too, different businesses and careers and mom life and different hats. And I feel like we're constantly like trying to balance, and prioritize and figure out, how much energy to put into each area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just last night I plunked myself into bed. I think it was 7:30, and I was just like, I feel like I've just run a marathon. Mm-hmm. It's like you just can't keep up right now. Mm-hmm. It's so hard. You're just doing everything. Like as a mom, you're doing everything. I mean, not to say that in my partner, my husband is not doing what he can and when he can, but he's up in his office most of the day, working. And so that leaves me, but then I'm trying to run a business as well. And it's just all the different hats that I think moms have to wear. It's just, and then throw in the pandemic it's crazy. It's crazy making sometimes. Sometimes you just have to laugh because you're like, how could one be expected to do all of this?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
and we've talked about this before because, our husbands are the ones, or sometimes your partner is the one that is making the more money. They're the ones to be expected to be left alone, and you're wearing all the different hats, whereas they have, two or three hats and you have 10.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So how do you, I think we talk about this all the time, but how do you set boundaries but still accomplish the goals that you want to achieve? That's what I struggle, where I'm like, okay, I just won't sleep. Like I'll just stay up till 1 a.m., editing a podcast or making flower bouquets or writing emails for my other hat as a teacher. And then the exhaustion builds because then I have my 1-year-old in bed with me and I'm not sleeping and blah, blah, blah. So I think one of the questions we have for you is how do you explain and define boundaries? And then how do you, what would you recommend to people in a similar role who are trying to wear all these hats at the same time while also navigating the emotions and feelings that come with getting hit every day with new information in the news from a pandemic and, so many other things happening right now in the world?
Such a big and good question that takes a couple circulations around it to kind of fully do it justice.
Sorry, so that was a big question.
No, it's okay. I'm gonna hope that I can close as many circle around as many times as possible, and I'll trust that we can follow up in some capacity so that no one's left hanging, because this is so big and so important. Mm-hmm. So there's a few things that I heard in there. The first is that you started with saying how do we set boundaries and accomplish our goals? Mm-hmm. And the truth is we can't accomplish them if we don't set boundaries. Mm-hmm. So let's start with that. And then the other thing that we have to weigh in at the same time here is, on one side, we have the way that we understand self-care in terms of you have to fill your own cup before you can fill the cups of others. That's what we logically understand. But what we've also been taught societally is that we get our validation from the outside in. So even to the point of often the way that household responsibility gets split up is that you do have to have someone who is the primary parent and you do have someone who is the primary earner, because that's what the household requires. Society validates and prioritizes the needs of the primary earner because there is a real consequence to a loss of income, which is that you can't pay your bills, you lose your house. There's all of these things that will threaten your livelihood and whatever. So what that leaves is that the person who is the primary parent is often left with the scraps of that energetic tending. Okay?
Yeah.
So when we look at this self-care cup, what we want to view is not just a cup, but a cup in the center of these concentric rings, right? And so if this cup represents ourself, these other rings represent what we pour into outside of ourselves. So our family, our partner, our friends, our colleagues, our audience, our et cetera, et cetera. So when we think about filling this cup, what we actually have to do is take that stack from a one-dimensional image and pull it up into a 3D. So it's a stack of cups that you are pouring down from. So when it comes to how we set these boundaries that allow us to take care of ourselves and fill our cup, if we want to fulfill the goals that have that big external impact that allow us to create change that ripples out beyond ourselves, we cannot do it without filling that cup first. So that's kind of that role that boundaries plays in helping us to take care of ourselves so that we can show up in those other roles and capacities in our lives in whole and meaningful ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I think Brie and I are both, one thing that we both is a 100% we have to do. We have to sweat every day. And I think that's something that we both prioritize because we know for like our ability and our mental health to be able to be a good parent and partner and business owner and all the things, and teacher, we have to do that first thing in the morning. And I know that I feel it like deeply if I don't work out in the morning. It like throws me off.
And that's something that I found has become like non-negotiable for me navigating my days, is that I have to start my day with taking care of myself, even if my to-do list feels like I'm going to drown in it. Yeah. Because if I don't do that, then I'm not going to bring like good energy into the rest of my day. And then I'm just going to do a crap job with everything. And I'll end up feeling worse about myself. So yeah, being aware of those things that you need to do and being aware of tending to not just the physical, which is also part of what we've kind of been taught with self-care, is that it's like, it's about going to the gym. It's about getting a massage. It's about taking a bubble bath, a lot of these external things, but also really incorporating some of that internal tending by meeting our emotional needs or our mental needs. In addition to it is part of that self-care practice.
Right. And I think that's an area where, I don't know, I feel like I definitely am not the best at taking the time for that. I mean, I talk with my partner and with my husband, like we talk and we talk through things, but it's rare to have like a quiet moment to think clearly and reflect. And that's something I comment on all the time, is that like, oh my gosh, I just can't think clearly. I can't think clearly.
Yes.
Because you have so many people pulling you in so many different directions.
Yeah. Well, when we look at the way that the human body is wired to respond to the environment, like as a protective mechanism, like we have our stress response, which in and of itself is a good thing. We require stress in order to survive. If we didn't have stress, we would have been eaten by the saber-toothed tigers because we wouldn't have known to run away, right? But the goal is that we receive that stimulus from the stressor, from our environment. It causes a stress response. We react, get ourselves to safety, and then we relax so that we can recharge and come back to a resting level before we engage in the next activity. The problem is that right now we're actually never getting that break. And so unmanaged stress is absolutely a problem because it means that we have these stressors. There's the stress response. We feel the tension ratchet up in our bodies, but we don't get a chance to release it, which means that then when my kid knocks a glass of milk off of the edge of the counter, instead of just being like, okay, let's clean it up, that leaves me going, what the ah! And I'm responding in a way that's completely disproportionate because I haven't had the space to tend to the stress before that. Right?
Yeah.
And so, like, what is different? Is there something different about our generation that's not, I mean, obviously we know there's a pandemic going on. So we're at home. There's not as many options as far as taking your kids out places and being able to release that energy and all of that. But what would you say is different from do you think that our past generations were stressed and exhausted like we are, but just didn't talk about it? Or is there something different about our generation right now? We seem like we are a stressed generation. Yeah. We're a stressed generation of mothers. We're a stressed generation of young adults.
Yeah.
So what's going on?
I think that both of those things are true. I think that there is a component that women especially have been conditioned to mistrust our feelings and to believe that emotion and expression of emotion is not a good thing. And I don't say that lightly. We were institutionalized for expressing feelings. Hysteria was exclusively a diagnosis that was used against women. So yes, there is an element that we were conditioned to ignore.
Definitely be diagnosis was different.
but again, with good reason, with good reason, because we do not have systemic and societal support, right? So yes, there is that element that I think that we were taught for a really long time, not to listen to those things, that they aren't valid, and things were kind of suppressed.
We're just talking about it more as a generation.
Yes, we're being given the space to talk about it more.
Yeah.
And I also think that we don't have a break from the stressors because we have email, because we have online work, because we have, we do live in a world that is bigger, more accessible, more connected than it was before. Even the fact that there's more traffic on the roads means that there's more ambient stress. You cross more people on the street. We do just live in a busier world, and it's harder to turn it off because there are there's consequences to disconnecting from it. Yeah. Yes, you cannot.
Also, women these days want to do it all. We don't want to be a lot of women don't want to be just at home with the kids.
Yeah.
Not just, let's rephrase that, being at home with the kids is the hardest job in the whole entire world.
Yeah.
But a lot of women don't want to only be doing that. I feel like I would go boasting about it, and I have said, if we didn't have our own thing, we would be crazy right now. We have to have our own thing. So I think that's also it, is that women have they want to do it all right now.
And so I think that there is also, again, this element of this historical narrative that it's important to be aware of when it comes to feminism, because there was this acknowledgement that women were being kept out of the workforce, we weren't allowed to vote. There were ways that we were very obviously oppressed and othered. And then we kind of had this introduction of feminism and second wave feminism that really said we can do it all. But what that actually left us with is being expected to do it all. And that's not actually possible because yes, we absolutely deserve the right to do fulfilling work that extends beyond caregiving, and this shouldn't be shouldered, but we haven't quite balanced that wheel yet where our counterparts are picking up that emotional slack and labor. And so I think that's what we've now inherited is this idea that we can do it all, but we actually can't do it all. We do need help. We do need support. We aren't superwoman. We are human.
Yeah. And then I struggle with the guilt that comes along with, I often say, I feel like I'm not doing an amazing job at anything. I'm doing an okay job at all the different hats, but I'm constantly feeling I should be doing better. I can do better. I need to be a better mom. I need to be a better teacher. I need to be a better business partner, better partner to my husband, and all these things. And when I struggle with being at home, mat leave, I've always said mat leave is a challenge for me. It's really hard to, and I have 3 kids, and every mat leave I've really had a hard time just enjoying it. And I've had so many people mostly I would say like an older generation be like, oh, just enjoy it. And I'm like, but I'm really struggling because not only do I feel like my brain isn't stimulated in the way that I need it to be, I also feel like I'm not meeting my own needs, as well when I'm just focused on like, keeping the children alive, which is an incredibly hard job.
Yes.
And incredibly rewarding. And I am so grateful that I get to have mat leave and that I get to spend time with my kids. But at the same time, it's so challenging. And then I feel like guilty that I can't enjoy it, or guilty that I don't enjoy all of it. And so there's this like constant like, and then your brain feels bad because you're feeling bad. And oh my gosh. Anyways.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So
I feel that so much. And it's like, I think that one of the things that's really important with, self-care, and especially the way that my self-care has evolved over the past year specifically, is creating space to sit with and navigate those feelings that are uncomfortable. Because the truth is that guilt exists because it gives us a marker for our moral compass, like it helps us to answer whether or not we've done something wrong. The important thing is to sit with it and answer, did I actually do something wrong? Because the odds are, especially with mom guilt, you didn't do anything wrong. And so being able to step away from that pressure that's telling you that you did something wrong is what helps you to move through it. So I think to just like be grateful bypasses the honesty that we need to name the feeling so that we can meet it and move through it. And then when we're able to do that, we can start to wrap our heads around the fact that like both of these things can be true. This can be a wonderful experience that I'm grateful for, and it can be the most challenging thing of my life. And when I can accept those things, integrate them, and allow them both to be true, I stop fighting the tension in the moment. And instead I can step into it. So learning to navigate those big feelings in intentional ways with honesty is what allows us to be in integrity as we mother and as we show up in the world.
Yeah. It's hard work.
So hard. Hardest work ever.
Yeah. As we were talking about, it's so hard to sit with those hard feelings. It's hard to feel the feelings of guilt and the pressure and everything. I know you've written a little bit on your blog about what you call the 4 R's, the 4 R's of healthy boundaries and self-care. I found these super interesting and helpful. Would you be able to just sort of give us a summary of what the 4 R's are for our listeners?
Yeah. So the 4 R's are a framework that I created to help people navigate the self-care and boundary setting process based on, again, that premise that we have to take care of ourselves if we want to make the world a better place and to raise kids who aren't little jerks. So I started to name the 4 R's when I was in the worst of my postpartum depression and needed some time away from the momming because I was just losing it. So I did house sitting for friends, and it felt like a retreat. Like for the first time I was able to sleep. I was able to feed myself when I was hungry. And I started to realize that I had a self under all the momming. And what that really illuminated for me is that retreat had less to do with that bougie spa experience or like feeling good. And it had more to do with that animalistic tendency to like flee a threat and protect yourself. So it wasn't just an act of self-care, but retreat was an act of survival. Because it was only when I had that space, like when I had to take it, that I could start really intentionally building in those practices that help to facilitate recovery, which is the 2nd R. So the theory here is that life is inherently stressful, and that's just not going to go away. But when we're equipped with the tools and resources that help us process that stress so that we can heal, then we can keep lifing. So there's just kind of this barometer of going back and forth between like stress, recovery. And that's just part of being human. So when we can recover, we can fill our cup, again, by doing more than meeting our basic needs. Like showering and eating isn't self-care, that's just survival. And so when we can create those conditions under which we can thrive, that's when we have reserves, which is the 3rd R. And that's what helps us to give to others without it coming at the cost of ourselves. Because if we don't have reserves and we keep trying to give, even though we're running towards empty, we end up really resentful. And that's actually not the 4th R, but it's there. So the fourth R is revolution. And it matters because the whole doing good and doing better is about more than just how we show up in these individual roles as a parent or a partner or a friend. It's about the work that we're doing together to create change and impact on a systemic level, because again, that's what's really breaking us. And so this work matters because the world is on fire, and it's not going to get better if we don't do anything. And we can't do anything if we're burnt out shells. So that's kind of that fourth R. But the big thing is that revolution isn't the end result. It's not the point of arriving. And it's also not just like showing up for protests or like running for political office, because when you live in a world that celebrates the hustle and grind and demands your self-sacrifice as a cost of participation, then to step out of that grind and claim the space for your rest and self-care so that you have the capacity for the long game, that is an act of revolution. So it's not a state of arrival. It underlies the whole process. So when we're at our most depleted and ignoring our needs, we need to retreat as an act of survival. When we're able to tune into our feelings, our needs, meet them, that's recovery. When we're doing that in a way that allows us to thrive, then we have the capacity, the reserves to give. Every step of that is revolutionary.
When I had with both my kids, when I had both of them, I went through at different times. I went through like serious postpartum anxiety and depression. I don't know necessarily depression, but anxiety. I had a horrible, horrible anxiety. And it took a lot. I was in such a funk and a fog that I didn't even know what I needed. All I knew is that my instincts and the animalistic part of me just wanted to be with my baby, even though my husband, thank God for my husband, knew that he needed to take over. Like I couldn't do it anymore, but I didn't know I couldn't do it anymore. I was in such a fog with it. And he just, when we were doing the sleep training, and it got to a point where I just was like, I don't want to sleep train. I don't want to I'm not the cry it out mom. I'll never be the cry it out mom. I'll never leave my baby alone and just let them, that's, to my mind, that was just like torture. And he just said, okay, we're not going to do the cry it out method, but we're going to sleep train, and I will do the sleep training. You are such a mess right now. I was so fortunate that he just kind of took the reins and said, and here I am, I'm in my bedroom listening to my baby screaming. And all I want to do, even though I'm so anxious and so miserable, all I want to do is rescue my baby from the bedroom. He just knew that that couldn't happen. I eventually had to just put earplugs in my ears and tune it out. And that was the only thing that got me moving forward in picking myself back up again, because it was allowing my body to take the much needed rest the rest that I needed. It needed to recover. And I think what you're saying is so, so important. And I think for moms, if you're a mom that's listening and you're just in that fog of barely functioning, what kind of advice do you have? Say the husband's kind of oblivious, or the partner, I shouldn't only say husband, partner is oblivious to what is going on. How do they advocate for themselves in that situation? Because I was so fortunate to have a partner that took the reins and knew what I needed. But what if you are a mom that's hearing this and thinking, maybe that is what I need. Maybe I need somebody to just take the reins and let me go house sit for somebody for a couple days.
So that's the thing, is all that we need, and I shouldn't say all that we need, I do put that in air quotes, but is the space to meet those needs as they arise, again, so that they don't stack and ultimately bowl us over. So I really celebrate that as an act. And I think that in terms of what do moms do if they feel that, again, that sense of fog, that sense of overwhelm, is start by finding the space in whatever capacity you can to get clarity on that need. So sound canceling headphones are a great way to do that, because again, if you can limit the stimulus and stressors, you can create more space to think. So that can be headphones.
I actually had a sleep trainer who was coaching us through. She said, put on earphones and put calming music on when you are going through your sleep training. She's like, because the mother in you wants to just end it all. You want to just grab your baby out. But if you can cancel out that noise, it's so helpful. Yeah.
Well, and again, and it's something that's true of that like tiny babyhood phase in terms of like, we just want to swoop in and fix the problems and make it so our kids don't hurt, when the reality is that like, it is part of our work to help them sit with those feelings of discomfort so that they can then navigate life. And so that starts with us being able to sit with our own feelings of discomfort. And again, creating the space that we aren't making our children's cry mean something about us. And like, maybe our partners don't have the emotional capacity to meet our need and sit with us there, but they can do something physical. And then it might be the question of like, who is available and accessible to you to help. A mom friend is probably going to be a more empathetic ear because of the shared experience. If you have a sister that you can reach out to, if you have, your mom is on good terms, like those are some of our inner circle people who are available to us. And sometimes you just need 2 minutes. You might just need to call and be like, hey, I just needed to hear a voice on the other side of the phone for 2 minutes. So that's one way that we can create that real-time connection with what is available to us, even if it's not the person that's in the same room as us. And hopefully, just communicate the need for space without the partner needing to understand necessarily what the space is for, because it's only after you come out of the space that you'll be able to articulate what you need. So there's an element of like trusting the process because it will move us forward in that big picture way. And then the other thing, again, for that mom that's stuck at home is, for me, a really big coping mechanism was getting someone else's voice in my head. And that was often a podcast. So even if I couldn't like get out of the house and go for a walk and get the space, like again, sound canceling. I'm going to underline that 1,000 times. Get sound canceling headphones and put someone else's podcast in your ears, someone else's voice, so that it can either change the state of mind that you're in, get you on a healthier track, or even like put on a stand-up comedy special and let yourself laugh. Like, part of those really big feelings, it's hard because it feels like they're going to last forever when we're in them. And again, the more stressed that we are, the more amplified our body creates. Like the more amplified reaction our body creates. So whatever you can do to limit those stressors and redirect where your brain is at is going to help you get on a better track to take that next step. So a lot of times we're just kind of like trying to stem the blow or the blood flow of that wound so that we can kind of keep going on.
I remember when I had my first baby and what I was going through, and it wasn't until 4 months later with my first that I started to experience those big feelings of anxiety. I just remember watching my husband leave in the morning and just being like, I have an entire day ahead of me all by myself with this baby. And I just remember the days would feel like an eternity, like at times, like, and then when you're fine, they don't, you get through it. But to just have some things that can break up your day is so important. Little coping mechanisms, things that you can look forward to throughout your day.
And I think having things that you have a marker of progress is also really helpful, especially for that mental tending, because part of what makes mothering so exhausting and depleting is that it's like you do the thing and it just has to be done again. Like Laundry Mountain shows up 3 times a week, whether I want it to or not. And so,
unloading the dishwasher for me is like
never ending.
The bane of my existence is that
Every single morning I wake up and look at that dishwasher. This morning my husband did it and I was like, thank you.
I know, and every time I'm unloading it, I'm like, does anybody in this house want to unload this dishwasher? Anybody else?
Yup.
Am I the only one that unloads the dishwasher?
My 9-year-old will unload it now. He's almost there. He's almost,
good.
Although he can't reach all the top shelves, so it'll be like in weird places.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. But as they get older, they can start to help with these things. He knows how to put laundry on. He can't really fold laundry very well yet, but he can put it on. So there's hope, guys. Once the kids get a little bit older, they can start to help.
100%.
Yeah. Well, just one thing to wrap up, Justine. Thinking about COVID and heading into year 2 of COVID, I mean, so many of the things you're saying are very evergreen and they will be helpful beyond pandemic times. But right now, do you have some tips or just like suggestions for anybody looking into like, oh my God, with these new restrictions and all this stuff happening, like how on earth can we keep going? So for the moms out there that are just like COVID exhausted, do you have any just like words of advice, wisdom, some silver linings to COVID, anything like that?
Oh my gosh. I mean, so the biggest thing that I've like come back to for myself again and again is just like, I cut myself so much more grace than I ever thought that I could have needed in my entire life. Like, especially heading into the second year. Because this first year, it was like, everything was unprecedented. We didn't know what was coming. It was all so new and we didn't know how to deal with it. Now we've had a year of those experiences. And so heading into the second year, knowing how hard it's been and knowing that this isn't a case of like, experience isn't going to make this easier. It's going to make it harder. The same way that like your second kid, you're more sleep deprived. It's harder. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It means that expect a lot less of yourself. Mm-hmm. as you do it is one thing.
Be kind.
And then in terms of like the actual part of what's so frustrating and again depressing is this thought that like the goalpost of when it's going to get better keeps moving. Mm-hmm. And so I really try to keep myself from hinging hope on something that's really out of my control. So it's like success is not getting the vaccine. Success is not getting on a plane. Success is not even restrictions being lifted. Success is like, I didn't yell so loud today that my voice cracked. Mm-hmm. Like that was success and I am celebrating it. And it's like, if I'm into like heading into the second year of COVID and I'm doing better managing my feelings now than I did 3 months ago, like that's the thing that I'm really holding on to and celebrating because that's what's getting me through the day right now. And then, in terms of like the silver lining of the whole experience, like what I've just kind of landed on is like moms, especially, I think like we lost so much in this year and so much was put on us and like we needed help more than we've ever needed it. And even though we were let down so much, we found each other in such a real deep and visceral way. Yeah. And like, even more than, making it through the day without my own tantrum, like nothing gives me hope, like sitting down, having conversations like this and having these moments of being like, we don't know how we're going to get through this, but we're going to.
And we're not alone.
And we're not alone in it. Yes.
Yeah.
And just, being able to, talk to other moms and realize that we're all feeling the same way. Like we're all going through this together. And
and it really, again, amplified these issues that were already existing. And like, there's no denying them. And I just hope that when we move through and out of this, like we can do something to make this different so that, moms in the future don't have to deal with the same pressures that we did.
Revolution.
Yes, revolution.
Now, Justine, I know you have a course that's coming up, or is it an online course called Staying Alive? Can you quickly tell us a bit about that before we go?
I love the title.
Yeah. So Staying Alive, it's funny because people describe it as a course. I don't think of it as a course because there's no homework, there's no curriculum, there's nothing that you actually have to do on your own.
That's what we need.
Yes, it is a do less. So Staying Alive.
Don't add anything more to our plates, please.
Exactly. This is all about getting things off the plate. So it's a 4-week group coaching program that's designed to help women navigate the messiness of this current life and to navigate it together. So it came to be at the start of the pandemic last year when people started reaching out, asking if I could do like something because no one knew what was coming, but they knew that they were going to be very stressed out. Mm-hmm. So Staying Alive is a bit like tossing out a life preserver into the pandemic sea that we all cling to together. The goal of the program is to help you learn how to set boundaries and develop sustainable self-care practices and just, again, feel less alone as you're navigating this sea. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. So how do people find out about it and sign up for it?
Yeah, so you can head to my website, which is justinesones.com, and go to Stay In Alive. So justinesones.com/stayin-alive. And you can also sign up for the Friday Feels, which will help you to get a better introduction to the work that I do. And I often mention when registration for the program is open, because it kind of evolves when I'm accepting people and when I'm not. So to sign up for the Friday Feels, people can go to bit.ly/the Friday Feels. That's bit.ly/the Friday Feels. Okay. And then that'll get you all signed up.
Awesome. And you're on Instagram and Twitter, and you have your awesome blog full of resources as well.
Yes.
What's your Instagram handle?
It's Justine Sones, one word. So JUSTINESONES.
Perfect.
Awesome.
And I'm there the most.
Community of moms that you're creating, which is, it's all about the community, right? That's what.
Yes.
Yeah, really helps.
Surrounding yourself. Yeah, dispelling the loneliness.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here today. That was such a valuable conversation, and I absolutely love what you're doing. We're very grateful that you were here today. Thank you.
Thanks
you
for
so
coming,
much for having me. It was so good.
Yeah, we look forward to talking to you soon.
Yes.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Spotify or any of the places you like to listen to podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram at The Mindful Mummies or check out our blog at themindfulmummies.com.
Did you know that Stina and I have officially opened up our very own online store called Hygge Space? Hygge, spelled Hygge, is a Danish and Norwegian word that has no direct translation to English. It is more than a word or a thing, it is a feeling. The feeling of Hygge encompasses many things, including family, friends, being together, making connections, traditions, making small moments special, coziness, love, being present, and connections with nature and each other. Both Stina and I share a passion for Hygge, as it is a practice that was taught to us by our grandparents and parents, and we continue to share it with our families and friends today. We believe that Hygge is the perfect way to connect, be present, and get cozy during these busy and sometimes stressful times. Our hope is to help others bring Hygge into their homes and experience the feelings of warmth, peace, and comfort it can bring. Visit our online store at hyggespace.com, spelled HYGGESPACECO.com, or follow us at Hyggespace on Instagram to see our collection of luxury candles, everlasting floral arrangements, and home decor.